because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. You know, like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
In this segment, Jordan Peterson and Bill Maher delve into the contentious issue of political correctness, critiquing its prioritization of sensitivity over truth. They argue that the cultural shift toward prioritizing offense, avoidance, and emotional comfort has come at the expense of open dialogue and intellectual honesty. Peterson identifies universities, especially within the humanities and social sciences, as key sources of this trend, attributing it to the influence of ideologically driven postmodernism. Together, Peterson and Maher suggest that this environment stifles free speech and discourages the candid exchange of ideas essential for societal progress. The irony is that Bill's audience is made up of the same kind of people that Jordan was criticizing. Is there any conflict? Let's watch the video.
Famous. Why do you think that sparked such a reaction?
Well, because I think that what I was saying was self-evidently true, but not expressed very well very often. I mean, look, most of the time when you're discussing something that needs to be discussed, everybody's actually rather upset about it. You know, if you're actually talking about something important, right? Because why talk otherwise, unless you're just shooting the breeze? But if there's an issue at hand that has to be discussed, then people are already upset and they have different viewpoints. And the offensiveness in some sense is built into that. And you know that because if you have a family, if you have a wife, if you have an intimate relationship, and you're discussing something that's difficult, the probability that you're not going to offend each other if you're actually having the conversation is zero. And so you don't have to think unless you have a problem. And if you have a problem, then when you think, you're going to offend people. And so what, are we not going to think? That seems like a bad idea.
In discussing freedom of speech, Jordan Peterson emphasizes its intrinsic link to the risk of causing offense. He contends that genuine, meaningful thought and dialogue cannot exist without the possibility of discomfort, as challenging ideas often unsettle established beliefs and norms. For Peterson, this discomfort is not only inevitable but necessary, as it drives productive discussions and promotes intellectual growth. Does Bill Maher agree with Jordan Peterson?
Yeah. You're obviously not an American. We love to not think. but you know, I used to do a show called Politically Incorrect back in the 90s, and oh, thank you. Oh, the 90s, we remember them. And so I was always asked, what is your definition of political correctness? And I had to come up with one. I said, it's the elevation of sensitivity over truth. Which seems like what it still is, except it's worse than ever.
It's more like the elevation of moral posturing about sensitivity over truth. It's even worse.
Yeah. So where did it come from? How did we get to this place where we're so fragile? The safe space people.
Oh, I think that you can pretty much blame it on the universities. I think that they've pursued, especially in the humanities and in the social sciences as well, they've pursued a policy of a radical leftist policy with an overlay of postmodernism, which kind of a literary criticism approach that's produced all of this. As far as I can tell, I think you can lay a lot of it at the feet of faculties like the faculties of education. There was an article in the Chronicle of Higher Education this week that just devastated the faculties of education, taking them to task for low academic standards and for possession by ideology and for basically indoctrinating people in a cult-like manner and playing identity politics and group identity.
And no free speech.
Political correctness, as discussed by Peterson and Maher, is seen as the elevation of moral posturing about sensitivity above the pursuit of truth. They argue that this shift has been amplified by universities, which, according to Peterson, have embraced radical leftist policies intertwined with postmodernist thinking. This ideological blend, prevalent especially in the humanities and social sciences, promotes identity politics and group-centered thinking, creating an environment where safeguarding emotional comfort overrides open, truthful discourse.
Yeah, well, the timing.
This crowd likes it, but I mean, it's nasty. And they're considering suspending her. And here's what the president of the university said. He said, this was beyond free speech. This was disrespectful. Have we we lost the thread back to knowing what free speech is? Yes, it can be disrespectful. That is covered under free speech. President of Fresno, you idiot. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, and you see this too. I think where it's manifesting itself in a particularly appalling manner is in the increasing unwillingness of comedians, for example, to go on university campuses to be funny. And when comedians
I'm one of them.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Peterson and Maher argue that free speech inherently includes the potential to offend, and that labeling offensive remarks as beyond the bounds of free speech undermines its fundamental purpose. They suggest that conflating disrespect with a violation of free speech principles reflects a misunderstanding of the First Amendment's protections.
Well, there's
really
also
very narcissistic.
Well, there's also this idea that's promoted by the people who are protecting those who are easily offended, that the way to make people secure is to protect them from things that they don't want to encounter. And
Right.
there isn't a clinician, like I'm a trained clinical psychologist, and there isn't a clinician in the country who's worth his or her salt that would ever make that claim. Because you don't make people, first of all, it's hard to make people safe because life is seriously not safe.
Yes.
And the way that you make people resilient is by exposing them to things that they're afraid of and that make them uncomfortable voluntarily, but you use exposure.
Right.
And and so, like, if you over-coddle people, if you protect them from everything that's sharp, you make them dull and stupid and narcissistic, and it's a really bad idea.
So you do know America.
Jordan Peterson critiques the concept of safe spaces where individuals are shielded from offensive or challenging ideas, arguing that this approach ultimately weakens people. He asserts that resilience is built through exposure to uncomfortable or difficult experiences, not through avoidance. Peterson contends that an over-coddling culture, which prioritizes protection from discomfort, fosters intellectual stagnation and emotional fragility, leading to behavior that is dull, stupid, and narcissistic. He warns that this mindset not only stifles personal growth, but also undermines society's ability to confront difficult truths.
One thing I mean, your book is fantastic, and one of the rules that I really love is you say, don't let your kids do anything that would make you not like them. That's what I've been thinking for years when I call them the fuck you mom generation. When I see kids, never in life because I never go near a child, but like on TV and movies, I see kids like saying fuck you mom. And I'm like, if somebody who wasn't your child did that, you'd be immensely offended, whereas the parents just take it. What's up with that?
Well, people don't like to admit that they can dislike their children or children in general, and right.
No, I know what you mean. And
But they can.
No, they totally can.
One of the things you see very commonly as a clinical psychologist is family members who hate each other, and who it's like they have their hands around each other's necks for 20 years and are squeezing very slowly, trying to strangle each other. And you see parents who clearly detest their children and have ever since they were born. And part of that, I know it's a terrible way of looking at things, but it's true.
It's so true.
And one of the things...
No, parents confide that in me because I don't have kids.
Yeah, well...
In his parenting advice, Jordan Peterson stresses the importance of raising children in a way that prevents them from becoming unlikable, warning that such behavior can lead to social rejection and difficulties in life. He argues that many modern parents hesitate to exercise authority over their children, fearing that it might suppress their creativity or individuality. Peterson views this reluctance as a mistake, emphasizing that appropriate discipline is necessary for children to learn respect, self-control, and social adaptability. By failing to set boundaries, parents risk sending their children into the world unprepared for real-life challenges. Thanks for watching.